patrons, welcome back to a brand new tutorial series where we're going to be drawing a dog with curly black hair in graphite. And so before we get into it, I wanted to do a little video just explaining the materials that I'm using, show you the reference photo, because I decided that I don't want to keep it like this because you can't really see too much of the details up close when I'm actually doing the drawing. So when I start doing the drawing, you won't be able to see the reference photo. So I just thought I would talk through some of the key things that I'll be looking at when I'm doing the drawing in terms of when I look at the reference photo. And like I said, also just show you the materials that I'm going to be using throughout this drawing. So this is a graphite drawing, but I will be using one colour pencil as well for the dark black bits. So the first and main materials that I'm going to be using, and there's not actually many supplies that I am using for this drawing, which is great. So the first thing that I'm going to be using is a mechanical pencil. And this is a new one that I got, and it's by Faber-Castell, and it's a 0.5mm pencil. It's got 2B lead in it. And so we're going to be using this mainly to get in all of the fur, all of the direction of the fur, and this is the pencil that we're going to be using the most. And that's really the main pencil we're going to be using. We're not going to be using too many different pencils. I wanted to keep this nice and simple and show you that you don't need loads of supplies to get a really, really realistic look. So the next pencil we're using is to get those black areas. As you can see in the reference, there's a lot of really black fur, really dark fur, and we really want to add depth to this drawing. We really want those darks to stand out and to be really dark. So to do that, we're going to be using the black Polychromos coloured pencil by Faber-Castell. And you can buy these singly. You don't have to buy a whole coloured pencil set just to get this black pencil. If you do graphite and you find that you do want to add this into your collection, then you can buy these singly from somewhere like Amazon, eBay, or any of your local art stores should do something like this. So that is great and it works well with the graphite. So on to the blending. For the blending, I'm just going to be using 3 different sizes of blending stumps obviously for the different areas and the different sizes. If I want more detail, then I'm using this really small one, and then I've just got a few bigger ones. You don't have to use blending stumps, you could use cotton buds. They're also really good at smoothing out and blending that graphite. Now, as you can see, this dog, the fur has got a lot of really light strands of bits of fur and details going over the black areas, which means that we're going to have to pull up some of the highlights. And to do this, we will need an eraser, but you can't use any old eraser because you need to get really, really thin, detailed strands of fur. So what I'm using is the Tombow Mono Eraser. You've heard me talk about this a lot, and I wanted to use it for my last graphite tutorial series, but I didn't have any of the refill erasers. But I've ordered some, and so they arrived, and we're going to be using this mainly to pull up all of the highlights for the final stages. And this is what is really going to make our fur look nice and realistic and really, really, really good. I've also got a refill for it in case I need to change it, but one should be able to do the whole sort of drawing. Now, those are the main materials that I'm going to be using. I'm hoping those are the only materials that I will need. But if I do want to add any different grades of graphite, then I have got the Faber-Castell 9000 graphite art set as well. And this has just got 12 pencils in, and it's got all of the different grades. So if I do find that I want to add it in between those 2B and that black pencil, I can go in here. But I'm going to try and do it without these, and you don't need those exact graphite pencils either. So those are mainly all of the supplies that I'm using. As you can see, not many at all, and all of these you can buy singly, so they're all quite cheap. So now let's dive into the reference photo a bit more and talk through how I'm going to approach this. So the image, the drawing that I'm doing is 11 by 14 inches. It's quite a large one, but I wanted to make it larger so that when I do all of these tiny white hairs over the top, I can use that eraser and I don't have to worry about getting them really, really thin and tiny like it would have had to be if it was a smaller drawing. So I can use that eraser, get those nice fine details, and they won't look too thick and clunky against the whole of the fur. So as you can see, there's a lot of really dark black areas, and that's where we're going to be focusing that black coloured pencil. The way that I'm going to do this is I'll be first applying that mechanical pencil to get in the main structures, the main direction of the fur, and get in the majority of where the shadows are. Obviously the shadows won't be as dark as they need to be at this stage, but I will get in the majority of the direction of the fur with this and indicate where the highlights and the shadows are going to be. And as you can see, my sketch is in a lot more detail than what it usually is. I will have the reference image and the sketch outlined attached. And the reason why it's more detailed this time is, one, because there's a lot of different kind of sections of fur going in a lot of different directions because it's curly, so there's that. But also because this is a present that I'm doing for a family member, so it's their dog, and I really want it to look like that dog. So in the past, when I'm just using the animals for reference, I'm not necessarily trying to make it look exactly like that animal, but this time I am, and so it's going to be a different sort of tutorial series because we're really going to be focusing on the details and getting that likeness. So that is why I've added more details so that everything is in the right place. I did transfer this sketch because I wanted it to be super accurate, and because you can, I feel like if you can transfer it, then why not? You should use all of the tools that you got available to you, make your job as simple as possible so that you can dive into the really fun stuff. And I don't feel like getting the sketch down is something that you should have to prove to yourself each time that you can do it free-handed. If you know that your skills for drawing are good, you're happy with your free-handing, then just make your life easier, transfer things sometimes. It's if you have deadlines to meet, if you're working as a professional artist or that's what you strive to be one day, then you're going to have to quicken up and make your process more efficient in any way that you can. So transferring like pet portraits or commissions is really important because you want your clients to be happy and they care about the final result, not how you got there. So that's why I transferred it. You can do it any way you want now. If you want the grid method, you can do that. Or if you do want to practice your freehanding, again, you can do that as well. But don't feel any shame if you do just want to transfer it. It's not a really bad thing. You're not cheating at all. And just because you got your sketch down, that isn't the finished result. This doesn't equal this. You've got to do so much work and apply so much skill to get it to this level. So don't worry about how you get the sketch down. But that is why I included a lot more detail, a lot more of the sections of fur than I normally would, and just because I want to get that likeness down. So for these really dark areas, that's where we're going to apply that black polychromos pencil. Like I said, we're starting with this. We're going to add the basic direction, and then what I'll do is I'll go over with this stump to soften it out, add a bit of value all over so there's not any areas that are just white. So we'll have the basic shadows, we'll have the direction down, and we'll have it nicely blended. And then what I'll do is build up some more shadows using the pencil, mechanical pencil and the black pencil. And then the final stage that I'll do is I'll go in with this Tombow Mono eraser just to pull up those individual highlights. And I'm going to be working on it section at a time until I complete each section. I'm not going to be working in layers. I'm just going to work from one area around until I've done the whole thing, and it'll be that same sort of process. It will take us a while, don't get me wrong. It's going to take quite a long time to do this, even though we're not using too many materials. It will take a while because there's so much detail. But I think this is going to be a really fun one for us to do. When you print off your reference photo, I do really recommend printing it off at the same size as you're drawing it, so that it's just 1:1 ratio. You can see the exact size, everything needs to be, the colours and everything. It's hard if you're looking at it on a tiny screen, but you're trying to draw this big thing. It's hard to see the size of all of those details that you've got to draw. So I really do recommend printing off the reference photo exact same size as you're drawing, so it's easier to compare, especially if you've got it all sketched out. It's easier to see each of the sections and go across, and just it's easier in the sketching stage as well. So we'll also be doing the background. I'll probably make it a bit more blurred than this because I don't really want the look of a sofa in the background. So I'll probably add the values but soften it so it's harder to tell what it is. And I'll do that once I've done the dog. I might use tissue to soften that out instead actually, rather than a blending stump, so that we get a more soft out of focus look. But I think that's basically all I need to talk to you about. Obviously, for these really light areas, those are where we're going to be using the eraser a lot more. I'm going to be starting with the eyes because that is what I always like to start with. I always like to start with eyes, whether it's a person or an animal. I really like getting them in. I think it helps you see the likeness straight away for the animal. And so that's what we're going to be doing in part 1, is starting with the eyes, and then we'll work our way around the sections of fur. I hope that little intro has made it a bit more clear about how we're going to be going about this process and the materials that we're using. Like I said, you don't need to use exactly these materials. What I do recommend is having a few blending tools, whether that's a cotton bud, a blending stump, tissue. I wouldn't recommend tissue too much because it does lighten it up and it's harder to blend out the details. And I'll definitely recommend a stick eraser of some kind, whether it's this one or just any other type of brand. You can get these little stick erasers that get tiny details. And I do recommend some sort of black colour pencil. The Polychromos is great because it's nice and fairly affordable. But yeah, I am really excited to get into this one. So let's get into it with starting on the eyes. So I'll see you in the first part of the drawing. Bye guys.